Good evening, Drew.
I fucking love concrete.
Just getting right into it. All right.
Can
Let's do
I
it.
I
Let's
want
do
to
it.
talk about concrete for a long time.
Okay. I'm strapping in.
I think that as a society, it's got to rank up there as one of the best inventions that we've ever done, if you really think about it.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
did you know that concrete has been around for thousands of years?
I didn't really know that. No. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Okay.
ancient Greece,
Okay.
they were pouring concrete, bud.
Okay. All
They
right.
were pouring
Good for
concrete.
them. Good for them.
Yeah. And I and here's something that's really interesting about concrete.
Hmm.
I thought that cement and concrete were the same thing. They're not.
They're not.
They're not.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, that's like if you really want to embarrass somebody, you should ask them if they can tell you the difference.
I don't know what the difference is.
Okay, do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, I'd love to know.
So cement is actually an ingredient in concrete because like when you want to make
Oh,
concrete,
okay.
what you're essentially doing is you're taking an aggregate, crushed rocks, is usually the most common, some sort of gravel, and then you need a binding agent, and that's kind of what cement does. Is cement is that binding agent that kind of gets into all those little nooks and crannies in the aggregate, and then that's what hardens up over time and helps you make those wonderful, wonderful forms and structures and highways and buildings and Jersey barriers and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So it's like cement and concrete are not the same thing. Hey, did you know, by the way, that that there's different things you can do with concrete?
I know there's lots of things you can do with concrete, but yeah. Yeah.
Well,
What are you thinking of?
well, I mean, obviously construction.
Mm-hmm.
You
Hmm.
can do a lot of things with construction.
Yes. Yes.
And a relatively recent-ish invention, even though concrete is so old. Like concrete's old news. We've been doing concrete for thousands of years.
Okay. Hmm.
But when we get into higher grade construction, that's where we get into thinking about things like reinforced concrete. So rebar, basically
Rebar.
it's
Yeah.
if it's one thing humans are good at, it's like looking at something and thinking, what else can I shove in there? If you think about it, like
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
mankind is
Really.
just about shoving stuff places,
Hmm.
right?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this French guy was like, what if we shove some iron into this concrete? Would it make it better? And that's kind of how rebar got started, and that's how we have these giant skyscrapers now that are steel and concrete. And if you ever see people make a highway, if you've ever driven past like a highway that's under construction, you'll see all these little bent iron rods. That's what they pour the concrete forms around. That just helps it, maintain rigidity and strength and everything. But also
Okay.
there's precast concrete.
Mm. What is precast concrete?
So you know how if you're driving on Interstate 270, they have those like really big concrete walls to make sure the cars don't run into each other when they're
Yes.
going the other
Mhm.
direction?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a form of precast concrete. It's just
Okay.
like casting anything else. I mean, obviously there's metal casting where you make a form and then you pour some molten metal in it and it gets all hard and nasty. Concrete's kind of the same way. So Jersey barriers, railroad ties overseas, because we still use wood here like animals. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with precast concrete. And now here's a really interesting thing about different things you can do with concrete. Did you know that there's also pre-stressed concrete?
I did not know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's pre-stressed wood
Okay.
and there's like other sort of pre-stressed things. And basically that's somebody making the concrete ahead of time and basically making sure that it's all cured up and then it has stress applied to it. So it's, a little less likely to break or experience a loss of fidelity or anything like that. Like I don't think we have this in houses per se, but in big, big structures, horizontal beams and load bearing things need to be pre-stressed. That's just, I mean, who doesn't know that, right? Like it's just something you have to know when you're talking about concrete. Hey, Paul, if you pour concrete, how long do you think it takes to cure?
I have no idea, Drew. Why don't you tell me?
Yeah, so when you pour the concrete, it's a liquid if you think about it, because
Yeah,
it's that
yes.
slurry with all the
Hmm.
aggregate and the cement and that binder in there, and it has to cure up. So you wet it down, and then the chemical reaction happens. Because really, this is all just chemistry. I mean, who doesn't know that?
Isn't
So you,
everything?
yeah, everything's chemistry, and you throw all that together, and then it gives off a lot of heat. Now, after you pour, say, a concrete slab or a driveway, it takes about 2 or 3 days for it to cure up to a rigidity where it's safe for a normal human to stand on it. And then 3 or 4 days later, up to a week later, that's when it can support heavier machinery, vehicles, construction equipment, things like that. So when you're working on a job site or if you're a concrete contractor, you really need to know that to basically tell people like, "Hey, don't walk on that concrete yet, it's still wet," or "Don't park that big bulldozer over here because it's going to shatter that." On average, Paul, it takes 28 whole days for concrete to cure completely. And I've even read places that, depending on the size of the concrete pour that you're doing, it can take hundreds of years for it to cure all the way.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that wild?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. And hey, in modern houses, concrete countertops
Oh,
are a thing. Have you ever seen those?
I'm not a fan, but I have seen them. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're doing really amazing things where they pour the concrete form into the shape of the countertop. Sometimes even in situ, like where they'll actually pour it there versus like hauling it in because like concrete's kind of fucking heavy. So they'll
Hmm.
pour it in there and then they'll sand it down and they'll
Hmm.
they'll apply like different patterns to the top. They actually look pretty good. And I agree it's a little bit of an acquired taste, but man, we're doing so many cool things with concrete.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
hey, this is really exciting too. So if you think about when we pour concrete,
Hmm.
what
Yes.
where do you think we've used the most concrete on Earth?
Where do I think we've used it? Like in like dams?
Oh, okay, good. Very good. So the Three Gorges Dam in
Uh-huh.
China
Okay.
is apparently the largest concrete pour in a single project, and it
Oh,
was
okay. Yeah.
yeah, so
Okay.
16 million cubic meters. Now,
That's a lot of concrete.
I mean, I'm American, so I'm gonna need someone to do the conversion for me, but that's a lot of concrete if
It
you
sure
think about it.
is. That's a lot of concrete.
And hey, just so you know, did you know that the largest continuously underwater concrete pour
Underwater concrete pour. Okay.
underwater concrete pour because they do things right. I mean, listen, I need dinosaur juice for my car because I refuse to buy an electric one. So I want to
Okay.
get,
Okay.
I want to get all that oil out of the earth. So if they have to go under the water to get it, that's fine. But like these wellheads that they drill, they have to put concrete around. And hey, hometown hero in 2010 in New Orleans, which is in Louisiana,
Hmm.
there's a contractor named CJ Mahan Construction Company of, get ready, Grove City, Ohio.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah. 10,251 cubic yards instead of meters because,
Right.
America.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so that's pretty interesting too.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, did you know
No,
that you can also make art out of concrete?
I did not know. I mean, you can make art out of
Sculptures.
anything. Yeah. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Oh.
And isn't it interesting that most of our roads aren't necessarily concrete, but they're asphalt? Why do you
Yeah.
think that is?
Uh, you know what? I do not know why that is. I've always just kind of
Well,
accepted it as fact.
yeah, so it's interesting. Over time, water and heat and cold do different things to different materials. And per cubic yard, asphalt is a hell of a lot cheaper and easier to maintain. Now, when it comes to building structures like overpasses and tunnels and things that require a lot more rigidity and overall strength, those structures are usually created out of concrete.
Hmm.
And they'll usually make the roadbed out of concrete too to make it one solid form. Sometimes they'll pave over top of it with asphalt, but that's why. Because, I mean, concrete's actually really, really expensive. And in Japan, check this out. In Japan, they do a lot of experimentation on concrete to make sure that it can handle earthquakes
Yeah. Yeah.
because they have a lot of earthquakes there. And when it comes to things like fire safety and energy efficiency, nuclear power plants, like if you think about it, concrete's pretty fucking cool.
Hey, can you give me a second, Drew? I need to
Yeah,
talk to the listeners for a hot second.
sure.
Hey, I have no idea what's going on either. So he's just going on about concrete for, gee, it's been 10 minutes now. I don't know what's going on either. So I guess we'll just figure this out together. Okay, I'm back, Drew. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem. Are you okay?
I'm okay. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, do you know why they deliver concrete in mixing trucks?
So they can keep it moving so it doesn't like cure and get all
Yeah,
hard.
yeah. You got to keep it moving.
Yeah.
You got to keep it wet, just like
Yeah.
everything else. Got to keep it moving, mixing around and everything. And then, you deliver it to the job site. And then after you pour it and it settles, that's why they have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And cement truck drivers have to be, in concrete driving, delivery vehicles have these big hoses. You ever seen that where they don't necessarily pour it? Sometimes they like squirt it into places.
Yes, I've seen the squirting. Yes.
Oh man, there's so many cool YouTube videos about that I've been watching.
I bet, because you seem to be really, really into concrete today.
Yeah. Sometimes, this is so cool. Sometimes they put little strands of fiberglass in concrete too to make it extra reinforcing. Like if you were going to get your driveway redone, sometimes, they won't necessarily reinforce that with rebar unless you have like, an arched driveway over like a creek or something like that. But sometimes they'll even put little strands of fiberglass in there to keep it good. And, they'll do different things with concrete edging. Ooh. Have you ever seen stamped concrete?
Yes, I have seen stamped concrete. Yes.
Yeah, it's where they come in and then they pour the concrete and they put a little design in it, make it look kind of cool.
Yes.
Man, everybody's so creative. Even with concrete.
Yeah.
I need a new driveway.
Okay. You've been
So I've
researching
been educated on all the different things we use concrete for.
Okay.
And all the different rules we have about having concrete driveways.
Okay. I'm happy. That's exciting. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
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 Mm-hmm. Do you have a concrete driveway?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And
Did you? They didn't talk to you about all this when you had your driveway done?
No. Did you literally get all this from the people pouring your concrete driveway?
People really like to talk about concrete. I got an education.
Oh, yeah. We're actually talking about getting a stamped concrete patio. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, do I have some contractors that would love to talk to you.
Hey, send them my way. I'd love to talk to
them.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'm currently in the bidding phase. I'm trying to. So our driveway needs redone. I think I talked about this. It's been at least a year now. When we moved into the house, one of the things that was noted on our home inspection was, hey, your front walkway is not graded the right way. And it's just mostly due to the enormous weight of concrete settling over time. And it was like tilted back towards the house. And when it would get a really, really big, heavy rain or snow would melt, it basically turned my entire front walkway into a lake. And that's not the kind of thing you want up against your house. So I had a company come out and they actually drilled holes in my walkway and injected what amounts to like a slurry underneath it to lift it and regrade it. Okay. And when they did that, I was like, hey, can you do my driveway too? And the guy was like, hey, I can't. It's too old and pitted and it's cracked in a few places. Like if we try to lift that, like it's just not going to go well. And I'm like, okay, I totally understand that. Thanks for being honest with me. So one of the things that's sort of been on our list is to get a new driveway done. So now that I'm a three car boy, I was talking to contractors about, hey, give me 2 quotes. Give me a quote for just getting the driveway redone. And then I also want a quote for like a slab off to the side where I can park my truck.
Car. Yeah.
Yeah. So that way, so that way I don't have to play musical cars or put one of the cars on the street if I want to take the BMW out or anything like that.
Smart.
More space for people to come over. But one of the things I'm finding out, I just thought it was going to be like, hey, I want to add a lane to my driveway. That in my head, that's how I thought this was going to go. But apparently I'm not allowed to do that. Apparently there's code, and I'm a little unclear on whether it's city code or county code or however this works. But apparently your entryway And there's a special word for it that's escaping me right now. Your end, like the piece of your driveway that connects to the road cannot be so many feet wider than your garage door.
Huh. Really?
So yeah, so like all I was looking for was like, take that entryway and extend it another, 8 feet or however wide that is, so I could just pull my truck right in and just park it there. But apparently that's not how it works. So the way that it needs to work, at least in Dublin, and again, I don't know if this is just code all up or if it's just Dublin. It could be stupid Dublin shit. What it'll be is I'll pull into my driveway and then I'll have to like cut it over to a slab that is connected to my driveway. Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, the more I'm learning about that, it might not be worth it, but I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. So that's kind of what I've got going on here. How are you, by the way? Did you learn a lot about concrete like I did?
I did. This is the most I have ever learned about concrete ever. So
Probably the most educational thing we've ever done on this podcast.
by not it's not even close. Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Well, I got my exciting stuff out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
You teased me last episode when we stopped recording and we have like our little private conversation time.
Mm-hmm.
You teased me with something that you were going to be doing.
Yes, yes.
Okay, hit me with this, please.
I bought something.
Yeah, did you get tariffed?
No, I did not get tariffed.
Okay.
Though the shipping from China was just it just like randomly showed up in my house one day. I'm like, huh, okay. I bought another handheld gaming device intended for emulation. I don't know if you clicked on this link yet, but go ahead.
Looking right at it.
Why don't you? Okay, yeah. All right. So why don't you tell the listeners what we got there?
This is the Retroid Pocket 5 handheld.
Yes.
And if memory serves, you've been thinking about this particular unit for a while now.
Well, I've been looking. I have been looking at higher end Android based emulation devices.
Sure.
I was looking at the Odin 2 portal for quite a while. That sucker is that device is a little bit, it's bigger, it's more expensive, it is a little bit more powerful. And I really decided that I didn't want something quite that big. So I ended up with the Retroid Pocket 5.
Okay.
It's $220 from a company called Retroid. If you're paying attention at all, they got a little bit of an oopsie with some of their previous devices, but that's not really important.
Whoa. Okay, I don't know anything about that.
Okay.
What's the oopsie,
Okay.
and why is that not relevant to the
So,
thing you just bought?
so it has to do with their, what is it? It's the Retroid. Which is it? The Retroid Mini? Retroid Pocket Mini. It's currently, I think they've stopped selling it. There wasn't so what Retroid is, and a lot of these companies are, they don't do a lot of industrial design. They don't design their own components. They go to the plethora of manufacturers in China and they kind of just piece together these things, right? So some, like, they'll buy a processor, like the Retroid Pocket 5 has one of the Snapdragon processors in it. And basically they'll buy like what that ends up to be like cell phone hardware, like screens and stuff. And they'll throw these all together. Someone realized that on the Retroid Pocket, the actual things didn't look quite right. And what they found was, so the screen was advertised at a certain resolution. I'm not sure some of the the screen was a particular resolution, like something like 920 pixels tall, but things weren't rendering perfectly on there. And someone did a lot of digging and realized that something in this firmware was basically rendering taking the image, rendering at a higher resolution, and then like scaling it down to a smaller resolution. So it wasn't exactly like 920 pixels or whatever it was. And a lot of people were upset because there were some certain shaders that just looked like pure ass on these things.
Okay.
And then Retroid was it's not that big of a deal. And then they're like, okay, all right, I get it. It's a big deal, but we're only going to accept returns for 200 people to limit down to the people that this really, really bothers to. And then that made a lot of people really angry. Some idiot on the internet found the social media manager for this company and doxed them and threatened their life. And then that person quit. And now I believe what they are doing instead is they are basically offering you can contact them and they'll send you like a new front panel and a new display that actually is the right resolution or something. But there is a big brouhaha. And it's just really because they're not designing these screens, right? They're just buying them, throwing them together, like, hey, ship it. Great. It's great. Yeah. Their note on the device is this product has a screen that does post-processing in some way customers find unacceptable. This effect is most noticeable using shaders and emulators that support them. Yeah, then blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. And apparently the issue was like deep in the firmware of the display, then it couldn't have been changed. So like it wasn't like a software issue. It was actually in like the firmware for the display. So, that's not important because I did not buy the Retroid Pocket Mini. I bought the Retroid Pocket 5. Okay. So I'm here to tell you, Drew, this device is simultaneously the worst and the best device I own.
Ooh, okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay. So all right, looking at so first of all, it comes in lots of different colors, lots of them. Like there's a 16-bit.
There's only one right answer though.
Okay, so I don't know what you think the right answer is, but I'll tell you what I bought.
Okay.
I bought the black.
Okay.
And the reason I bought the black is this has an OLED display.
All right.
So the pixels that aren't being displayed are pure black.
Okay.
That basically means that the bezels just disappear. And when you're playing a retro game that's in like 4:3 aspect ratio, you don't even like it looks so beautiful, kind of just floating there in the middle. You don't see the screen.
I get that. Bezels. Okay, I'll change my answer.
Okay,
I'll change my answer.
Now I really do like the 16-bit, which is like their Super Nintendo one. I think that's pretty cool. The GameCube, I don't like the two different colored thumbsticks. That's not for me. Now there is also one really important factor about the physical layout of this device that attracted me. Can you guess what that is?
Well, the thumbsticks are both on the same place.
Yes, the symmetrical thumbsticks. They're both on the bottom. Yeah.
Just like dirty PlayStation people like.
Yes, exactly. All of us Sony ponies. We like them.
Sony ponies.
Sony ponies. Yep. And the thumbsticks are Hall effect thumbsticks. Okay, right.
Oh, you love that.
I do love that. It's got a great screen. It's like a 1080p screen. It's got a pretty decent Snapdragon processor in there. But it runs Android. Okay, so this is not a device that comes to you ready to go. Right? There are no emulators on it. Like if you buy something from Ambernick, you're going to get like something with.
Oh my God! They're like, we know what you're about.
Yeah. You get Android. Okay. And setting this thing up was fucking awful.
Okay.
So if you decide to buy one of these devices, I'll put a couple links in the show notes. Go listen to Russ from Retro Game Corps. I talked about them before. He's basically got a written guide and a video guide on how to set up this device, how to set up Android. And really,
that now,
he doesn't say what the goal is, but the goal is to like push Android down deep in the shadows, hide it in the closet so you don't have to see it. If you go to like 50 seconds into that video, he kind of shows you the end result, right? And it is basically using like Emulation Station, Desktop Edition to have all your, all of your games and your emulators and apps in a nice controller friendly way that doesn't look like Android. Okay.
Okay.
I'm
I
also
get that.
okay. I need a couple minutes just to complain about Android for a minute. Okay.
Okay.
I know I am using this is Android 13. It's not the most recent version, and I am not using a traditional Android device. This is not a phone. This is not a tablet. There is a touchscreen, but it's like, it's a landscape orientation. It's just a weird size. Okay. But Android fucking sucks. Uh the one thing I will like is most of the user interface is navigable with the physical controls. Not all of it, but a lot of it, right? I don't know how people put up with this shit. The keyboard on Android is designed. I don't know who designed it, but they need to be beaten. It's so unintelligently laid out. And like when you use an iPhone, like Apple put a lot of effort into their keyboard. And a lot of times, like, you're typing with your big old fat sausage fingers. And Apple tries to be nice, like, oh, you were trying to hit the E, weren't you? I got you. Like, so you make less mistakes. This keyboard doesn't do that at all. There's no magic. There's no magic. It's just like you have to be very precise with your typing and type on the exact same letter, the right letter, exactly in the center, or it won't work.
All right.
The Play Store is just swimming with ads, swimming. Often to the fact that even when searching by an application by its exact name, I would have to scroll through multiple pages of ads to see the application I want. It is, it is, it's offensive, is really what it is. Uh, and the back button, I know people love the back button on Android phones. To me, it's still an absolute mess. Every application does the back button a little differently. I don't know whether the back button is going to go back one screen, it's going to go back to a different app, it's going to open up like a quick menu, which is something that's not what back means to me. Back doesn't mean quick menu. Doesn't mean showing me additional piece of UI. Sometimes you hit the back button, the app just quits. So I don't know. Android, uh, Android's not. It's not good. It's not good. How I don't know how people use it daily, let alone even decide that they like it. It is just just anywho. Okay. Anywho, you get this device, you turn it on, you get signed into your Google account, and you sit down with Russ's guide from Retro Game Corp, and you're gonna put some emulators on there, and you're gonna get stuff set up. Okay. Well, first of all, there's a lot. There's a lot of things you have to download, and like it's also kind of like a moving target right now because emulators on the Play Store apparently this is a like a rough time. A lot of them are pulling their applications from the Play Store. Some of them are open sourcing them. Some are just like, nope, we're done, we're out, middle fingers. So even when I was going through the guide, some of the stuff that he was saying you can get from the Play Store were no longer there, and I had to find other ways of doing it. Lots of side loading, lots of just downloading random APKs off of GitHub and installing them. The PlayStation 2 story is a particular nasty mess because apparently the main emulator was one of the ones that pulled themselves off of the App Store and said they were going to open source it, but never did. So there's like two different forks where people have taken the last good binary and are patching the binary to improve it. So you have to like download this file and download a patch file and download this weird app from the Play Store and say, take this binary and then take this patch file and merge them together and then install it. It's just it's bonkers. It's absolute bonkers. So if you're doing this, like you have to set a whole day aside because like every like you're downloading So like the main thing you download is an application called RetroArch, and that does most of like your retro gaming. So your NES, your Super Nintendo, your Sega Master System, the Genesis, the Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Gear, like that kind of stuff. The really easy stuff. Uh, but even that's difficult because you have to download all the right cores and you have to set everything up just right. So like really, really follow the guide. The launcher itself, the user interface that you use is an application called Emulation Station Desktop Edition. To get that, you have to join a Patreon for a month. All right, so this
Wait,
it's not free, and you can't just buy it. You have to join their Patreon, and then he puts you on a list where he emails you updates to it. So apparently you don't have to stay a Patreon. You just have to join it for 1 month. Uh, apparently that's what I've been told. I do not know this for sure. So we'll see if I ever get updates. But that's what you have to do. You have to join a Patreon to get this software. Uh, the the button mapping. Okay, so the Retroid Pocket, like a lot of these devices, comes with the traditional Nintendo layout, right? So the A button is on the right, then the B is on the bottom, and X at the top and Y is on the left. The Xbox layout is the opposite of that, right? So the top and bottom, like
yep,
they're just it's
yep.
like a mirror image. Well, because Android and most Android apps work better with the Xbox layout than the Nintendo layout, you have to go into Android and say, are you using the Xbox layout? And then so that basically you just have to know what button you're pushing, because your A button isn't your A button anymore. Your A button's your B button. Uh, even though it says B, it's really A. It's awful. It's awful. It's awful. But if you get through all of that, you get through all the frustration, you get all your emulators installed, and you get all your button mappings and configurations set up, and download all the right RetroArch cores, and get Emulation Station Desktop Edition installed, and get a good theme installed, and configure it so it knows what emulator to launch based off of what game you're playing, and you let it run overnight to scrape all the box art for all your games and download them, because that's real slow. You do all of that. It's just like a day and a half of just absolute nonsense of getting this thing set up. After you do that, Drew, this device is amazing.
Okay,
It's an absolute joy to play games on it.
okay. Now, why is that? Is it just because it's powerful?
There's a lot of things. Okay. Uh First, it's the ergonomics. Okay. It is a perfect size. It's about a little bigger than like a 7.5 inches wide, 3 inches tall. And I weighed it. It's only 275.5 grams. That's about 9.7 ounces. You can buy bags of cheese at the grocery store heavier than this, right? It is light, and it's got active cooling on the back, but it's extremely quiet. And because your hands are on the sides and not like directly behind where the processor is, it doesn't get hot. Some of like the older, like the other like more compact devices I have, after about an hour of playing them, they start to feel warm because your hands are like literally right over top of the processor, and where the hot comes from. Okay.
Where the hot comes
Where
from.
the hot comes from.
The hot bit.
Mhm. It doesn't, there's not a lot of like shape to it, but there is a little bit of like these like ergonomic bumps on like the bottom, the back bottom corners, and they have this delightful like texture on them. So it's extremely comfortable to hold. It took me like maybe like 45 minutes to kind of figure out where to put my hand, my fingers, and how to grip this thing. But once I did, it is extremely comfortable. As you noted, I'm a really big fan of symmetrical thumbsticks. Uh, you know, the controls themselves are really nice. While it is a little bit, the controls are a little bit smaller than like a typical like modern game controller. They are really nice. They all feel real good. They're not too loud. Yeah, they have a good. They're not clicky. They feel good. They're springy. They're responsive. Uh, the RGB can be turned off, which is great. The screen is absolutely incredible. So it's an OLED screen. It's a good quality screen, nice, vibrant, rich colors. The blacks are pure black. And because this device is powerful enough that it can often like upscale these retro games, but like a factor of like 2 or 3, and it's a 1080p screen, and the pixels are just so small because it's only 5.5-inch screen. Everything just looks absolutely crisp and vibrant. And even like old like NES games like Super Mario World, you look at it and you're like, wow, I have never seen Super Mario World look that good. It is just an absolute joy to look at these old games on these screens. And as far as like emulation goes, like this thing will do uh all the way up to like GameCube and PS2 flawlessly. I've even seen alpha version of a PS3 emulator that looks very promising. They were playing Sonic at 60 frames a second. Looks really good. Apparently, it also can do like Switch games. I'm not really interested in that, but it does Switch. Like for PS2, I'm running it like 3 times the resolution, and I'm getting a really like almost perfectly locked 60 frames per second. I've seen some
Wow.
GameCubes run at 30 frames per second, but still it looks really good. It's like once you get this thing set up and you're going, it is rock solid. The battery life is great. Uh it does have one of those things where like you can change like whether there's like 3 different performance modes. It's like, what do they call them? They call them standard, performance, and high performance. Things like PlayStation 2 do work better if you have high performance on, uh, which I think at the high performance level, I can probably get about like 4 or 5 hours of PlayStation 2 gameplay. But if you're doing something like NES or older, like the battery's practically infinite for those things. You could probably play for days and
What
not
kind of
need to charge
charger
it.
does it have?
It's a USB. It does up to 35-watt charging, I believe. So
USB-C?
USB-C. Yep,
Okay.
USB-C. Uh, and the speakers on them are pretty good. I like the fact that the speakers are on the front. A lot of these devices will try to like hide the speakers like on the back or the bottom, but they're right there on the front. And the way that you kind of like cup your hands around it, I feel like it kind of like points the sound at your face, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Kind of shapes them. Uh like what the setup was just awful. I was frustrated. I was angry. It was just awful getting all these things, you know, getting things set up, following the guide to go through and go, okay, I should go change this setting and this setting. But like now that that's done and I'm just playing games on it, I love this thing. It is incredible.
So, how long do you, or measured in hours, how many hours did you put into the setup?
Probably 12.
Seems like a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. And I broke it
And
up into
then,
like 2 different days because there was one point where I'm like looking about what I had to do to get PlayStation 2 stuff running, and I'm like, oh no, that seems too hard because the guide in like the retro art guide assumes you have access to a Windows machine, which I don't. So I had to find
uh-huh.
another way to do it. But it was a lot. It was awful. Now granted, like sometimes that's downloading and waiting for things, so like you can do it and watch TV or something, so it wasn't just dedicated. And it did like part of that was also like kicking everything off once I got my waiting for my ROMs to copy from my computer to my SD card and getting them there and getting all the box art scraped from the internet. Like that took forever.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
That
I was.
API sucks.
It wasn't like I was like, poking around Android for 12 hours, but but the time I started till I was finished was, yeah, which I kind of said like a day and a half to get it up and running. Yeah. Oh.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
you have quite a few of these handheld now.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that you have specialized hardware for like Game Boy. So
Yep.
I want to exclude those devices. If you were going to rank your top 3 devices in order of what you think the best platform is for emulation. I mean, I know you got
Yeah.
your ROG, I know you got
Mm-hmm.
your Steam Deck, you got this boy, you have
Mm-hmm.
another one. Give me the 1, 2, 3.
So for emulation,
Yeah.
I'm number one is the Retroid Pocket.
Wow. Okay.
It is just that. Yeah, it is an absolute kick to the dick to get it set up. It is an awful, awful experience, and you're like, oh my god, why am I doing this? It is not easy. It is not for the faint of heart. If you're just someone who's completely casual, I would not like. This is not the device for you. But once you're done, it is amazing. Heck, even some games like what was the Ambernick that I just bought? Ambernick. Oh, what did I get on there? Which one is that? The 40XXV, which is I bought specifically for Game Boy Advanced. I think Game Boy Advance games look better on the Retroid Pocket
Interesting.
than on the Ambernick. I will give the Ambernick of my devices the number 2 if you're especially if you're willing to replace the stock operating system with something like Mustard or MuOS, whatever you want to call it these days. If you're looking to emulate, PS1 and earlier, it is a great device. It comes shipped to you with all the emulators you need installed. You don't have to worry about it. It's just get ROMs, play games. The form factor is fun. I think the whole vertical layout where it reminds you of old Game Boy, that's just kind of fun. Like I said, because your hands are right over where the hot comes from, it does get a little uncomfortable after about an hour. And they're a little hard to hold, but it's just fun. It's fun. It's fun. And number 3, I'm gonna give to the ROG Ally X, because there are some systems that like, for example, if you're interested in doing Xbox emulation, you really need to run that on Windows, because that's the only place where good emulators exist. So, and there's enough horsepower there to really do, like, it will even do like PS3. I've seen some like early like Xbox 360 stuff on the ROG Ally. It's just a good all around, big battery, lots of horsepower, big screen. I would say for retro, I'd put that number 3. I think a close 4th would be Steam Deck with like something like Emu Deck. That experience, if you're willing to boot into desktop mode, is really, really streamlined to get you up and running with emulation on a Steam Deck. So I'd probably give that like 3.5, maybe tied for 3 with the ROG Ally would be a Steam Deck. But man, the Retroid Pocket 5 is just, it is an absolute joy to use after you get it set up.
Man. Okay. Strong recommendation.
Yep. If you're willing to have a day like 8 to 12 hours of just pure shit and you just get through it, it is great. And so also right now, in between when I bought this and today, Retroid is selling the Pocket Flip 2, which is essentially this. I'll put a link into here.
Okay.
It is the same Eternals, but in a clamshell.
Same internals, but a clamshell.
Same screen, same processor. If you buy the SD865 model, the more expensive one, It is a little bit more than the regular one, but it does have a hinge that closes, and it's some people are really, really excited about that. I'm not super excited because, when you have thumbsticks in these folding devices, the thumbsticks have to be flush with the device, so they kind of sit in. I'm not a
Mhm.
huge fan of how that feels, but if you're looking for something you literally could put into your pocket and not worry about the screen getting tore up, the Retroid Pocket Flip, it's the exact same device, just in a different form factor. Uh,
So, two more questions,
mhm,
okay?
mhm,
Sort of following on from the 1, 2, 3 argument. Obviously, the setup is a bit of a bear.
mhm.
That you would still recommend, you would still place that device over others, even knowing that.
Yeah, like if you were really like just an absolute like you didn't want to deal with that at all. You just wanted to buy a device that had everything set up. I would go with the Ambernick because that's how it comes. It comes with emulators in there. You just have to get ROMs, put them in the right place and go. There's no thinking. But I mean, the Android platform does give you this like there is a lot of options out there and a lot of people making really good high quality bespoke emulators that run on Android. It just takes a lot of time to like sand off all those hard edges and get everything configured right because there's lots of Android devices out there. There's phones, tablets, these weird handheld things. Getting those emulators set up correctly so they run the best on your device. Uh, it just takes a lot of work to get it where, like I said, if you go to the 50-second mark of that video where he kind of walks you through what it's going to look like with Emulation Station, to get to that point where you just can go to hit a game and it plays and the buttons are what you expect and the resolution is what you expect and all your hotkeys are mapped so everything you can use the same hotkeys in different emulators to save and load your games. Like it's just so much work because every emulator is different, written by different people with different expectations to get those installed correctly and getting, like I said, getting Emulation Station DE set up correctly. It's a lot of work, but I think that if you're willing to put in that work, and it's awful, it's frustrating. You'll be mad because the guide will be out of date. So then you're looking around in Reddit posts, and it's not it's not as straightforward as I would like. But if you can get there, if you can get to that end, the device is just so good. The screen is so good. The processor is so, you know, it's good. There's better Snapdragons out there. Like the one that comes in like the Odin Portal 2 is better and faster. It can do some more modern stuff. But it's perfectly fine for, like I said, like I'm going up to like PlayStation 2. I'm of course I'm a sucker. I'm playing God of War on it again, the original PS2 game. It runs great on there. Absolutely, this just almost nearly locked 60 frames a second. But if you can get through all that, it's wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good to hold. It feels good. It feels high end. The front is glass. The thumbsticks feel good. The buttons feel good.
Did you buy a case for it?
I bought the case that they sell with it. They sell a case for like $10, I believe, with it. Retroid Pocket 5. The Retroid Pocket 5 carrying case for $10. I bought that sucker. Yep.
10 whole
10
dollars.
10 American freedom bucks. Yep.
Yeah, that is a thing. They don't give you a lot of pictures of it, but it's
No,
there.
oh no, this website is bare bones, man. You have to know this. You don't come here not knowing what you want to buy. You come here like, I have decided to buy the Retroid Pocket. Now where do I get it from? Oh, here, got it.
Well, cool, buddy.
Yeah.
So how many days have you had it now?
I've had it. So it came Saturday morning after we recorded. So about what since Saturday? So
Yeah,
Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, like
5 days.
5 days. Uh Feels like it's been longer, but I have spent a lot of time with this sucker, playing trying different things and playing lots of different games. Just I even pulled down some old Sega Game Gear stuff because I had that as when I was a kid. So I've been playing like the Ninja Gaiden side
Yeah.
scrolling beat 'em up on the Game Gear. That's been a lot of fun. Uh, yeah, it's been great. Lots in God of War, Mario Kart Double Dash, the was it Super Mario Power Tennis for the GameCube. Been playing that. Uh,
Mario
yeah,
Golf for the GameCube is still my go-to. I love that
yeah,
game.
yeah.
I have that one is very prominent in all my emulation devices. All right. That's awesome, man. I'm happy for you. I'm sure in about 4 weeks there'll be a new device that you'll want to talk about.
Maybe, yeah.
I have my guns and you have your emulation. So, sort of to cap things off tonight, I've got a little bit of an announcement to make. So, for those of you that know me, know that I have a very data centric career. I literally started out lugging printers up and down stairs, as one does. Sort of got into data. I mean, it was data engineering before we started calling it that, working with very, very large files and processing them and loading them to relational stores and working with data warehouses. And then I became a DBA for real. I did some development and I was a SQL Server DBA for a number of years. And, that's if I had a peak in terms of online presence and speaking and just being sort of a known figure in a data community, it was really sort of during that time. And I got to meet a lot of cool people. That's how I got to know friend of the show Eric, friend of the show Arthur, and friend of the show Brent Ozar, and all these other people. And that was a really, really good time in my life. There are times that I miss it, but there's also times that I don't miss it just because I'm more busy now and I have a lot to do. And then over the past probably 5 to 6 years, my career took a little bit of a turn. I got away from traditional relational database administration. I learned a lot from you and other people when I worked with you about DevOps and automation. That also kind of reignited my passion for cutting actual code. And, I took that when I went to Microsoft, and then I learned all about Azure and working in the Azure landscape. I think that there's one thing a lot of people can sort of tell you is that Azure services suck for databases. Any managed SQL database running in Azure kind of sucks. That's why most people run it on VMs. So, in my time at Microsoft, I really became more engrossed in, next generation data platforms based on data lakes and distributed processing and parallel processing and working with Apache Spark, and then ultimately winding up at Databricks. And it's been a fruitful career. I mean, I've really got no complaints. I like my job. I like where I work. I've liked where I've worked. So I've had a little bit of a charmed life in that regards, that I've really enjoyed my career up to this point. But over the past probably 4 or 5 years, that means, especially at my advanced ripe age of 45, that I had to keep my skills sharp. And I'm always learning. My passion for learning things and mastering things has not waned. And one of the reasons I really like my job is I get to be a teacher. I get to teach people things and help them understand things. And my face really lights up when I could be teaching a class or leading a webinar, and I'll ask an open-ended question and someone will answer it because of how I taught them. Or even better is when someone else in the class asks a question, and because of stuff that we've already covered, someone else is able to answer it. Like, for me, that is the sort of high that I chase in my career. So previously, I have partnered with people like Brent Ozar to bring training to online platforms. In the past, I've done PowerShell for SQL Server DBAs. I've done Introduction to Azure Networking. I've done other courses around some other DevOpsy type stuff. And I'm here today to say that I have just finished up, and it's technically live right now. By the time that this podcast gets published,
Okay.
there is a new training course that is out there that sort of combines some of these past few years of my learning and what I think is important for people who want to make similar leaps in their careers. And that is fundamentals of Python.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And where can
So
we
this
find
course,
that?
yeah, so this course is going to be offered through the website Smart Postgres. So
Okay.
again, friend of the show, Brent Ozar, a really good friend of mine. I've known him for a number of years now. I actually owe a large part of my career to his tutelage and mentoring and being able to have, ask him questions and taking his training classes and doing things. And he's been super generous to me by giving me opportunities to create this content and then ultimately turn around, and he provides a way to host it. So he basically licenses this training from me. He has expanded his brand over the past year or so because he's starting to get more into the Postgres. He's very, very famous in the SQL Server world, but he has expanded into the Postgres world because he sees that that's where a lot of people are going these days, or to database engines like Postgres
Yeah.
over traditional licensing structures like SQL Server or Oracle. So he's sort of planted his flag there, and this course is going to be offered through that website. So if you go to, I believe it is Smart Postgres, I think it's just smartpostgres.com.
.teachable.com.
Well, the
Or
main website, yeah.
oh,
So the
okay.
the
There is
Teachables
okay.
subdomain. But if you go to Smart Postgres, SmartPostgres.com,
Oh yeah.
that is sort of
okay.
his
Yep.
website. He maintains a blog there. So even if you're not interested in online training, but you want to learn more about Postgres, he's got a really cool mailing list, just like he does for his SQL Server related site. So you should definitely check that out, regardless of whether or not you buy my course. But under fundamentals of training, there's going to be fundamentals of Python. There'll probably be a picture of me of there, at some point. And you can see that there's quite a few sections in there talking about, what Python is, what you're going to learn, starting from the absolute basics and then working up to actually doing data analysis and data analytics and data engineering with Python, because that is, Python has become a tool for modern data professionals. Even if you're not necessarily doing things with Spark, things like PySpark or doing distributed processing, frameworks like Pandas for doing data analysis and data cleansing and data science, like those are all really, really rooted in Python. And I think that, you and I have worked with relational databases enough to know what they're good at and what they're not. And people try to cram things into database engines that don't belong. And that's the gap that Python sort of fills for people, is you work with the relational data store, the data warehouse, to pull down the data you want. And then you use libraries and languages like Python and, Matplotlib and scikit-learn and pandas and all these other things to actually work with data programmatically, and then turning around, transforming that data or doing things with it, and then putting it back to where it needs to go. So Python is a skill worth learning. And of course, if you've ever looked at generative AI scenarios, like a lot of that stuff's also written in Python. So it's an in-demand skill. I believe it was either number 2. I think it was number 3 on Stack Overflow's development or developer survey as languages, behind CSS and JavaScript. So it's definitely something that isn't going away. I know real developers like to dunk on Python for sometimes valid reasons.
Yeah. I dunk on Python any chance I get.
Yeah.
As a real developer.
Yeah. As a real developer, yeah, I hear that a lot, but it doesn't change the fact that this is an important skill.
No, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So definitely check it out if you're interested. If you have any questions about it, or want a sneak preview of what the course looks like, feel free to hit me up on Blue Sky or email or however you want to do that, and I will gladly talk you through it. But you can check the show notes for a link and check out all the lessons. And there's even some free preview videos you can watch. And once he starts marketing it more heavily, it'll probably show up in your LinkedIn feeds too, if you follow me at all. So anyway, just wanted to share that with everybody. Pretty proud of it. I worked really hard. I worked super hard on this one. It took me about 6 to 8 months to actually do it, and come up with something that, number one, is meaningful and then works on everybody's computer because oh boy, setting up Python across different OSs is an adventure. And
Yeah.
I have individual videos for
Yeah, yeah. Those
here's how you
are
set
those you
this
can
up.
see on preview, and I'm kind of just poking around them. It's like, oh yeah, this is yeah, that there's a
Yeah.
lot to that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I had to like scrap a whole bunch of it because in the newer versions of Linux, like the old way of installing it doesn't work anymore. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Neat.
it's something. But it's, and of course, with all the events and all the things that I went through last year, it also delayed a lot of that stuff. So it's finally at a place where I feel like, okay, this is ready to be birthed into the world. And one of the nice things too is I prominently am plugged into all the feedback. So if people get stuck or they say, boy, this is cool, or boy, this sucks, I'll be keeping this up to date and making sure that everybody gets what they need. And then of course, when you take these classes, it's not just you watching me. It's also a lot of demonstrations and talking about the whys. You also get little homework assignments with answers for you to test your skills, just like all the other courses that I've done. So again, if you have even a passing interest to this, feel free to hit me up for any questions.
Cool. Excellent.
Well,
Well,
that's a show, huh? Or do you
that's
want
a
to talk
show.
more about concrete?
No, I think I'm good. I think I'm all concreted out.
All right,
Uh,
let's get out of here.
uh, you know, come to us for all your concrete related news. At doingtheirbest.com, you can find all the show notes, all the links we're talking about today. And hey, thanks for listening.